Well, we're back. Hi, everybody. You know, I'm really glad that we have some experts here to talk to us about this. Okay, we have our sociology instructor, Lindsay Padilla,
Yes.
and our student, Nick Scogan. Okay, and you're going to let us know a little bit about human rights and what the students of Sociology 1B are going to be doing about it this semester.
Yeah.
Okay. First of all, I want to just ask a little bit about you. How did you get into this? How did you come to be sitting here talking about human rights?
Yeah, I could talk about that for a long time, but I kind of fell into it, kind of. When I went back to school to get my master's degree in sociology at San Diego State, I thought I was going to go back and teach high school. But then there was this transition period where I figured out that community college was for me by talking to different professors that I had. So once I had that set into place, my husband actually got into a PhD program up at Santa Cruz, so I was down in San Diego. And up there, I started looking into other schools to get a doctorate, and I came across the University of San Francisco, which has this program that's called International Multicultural Education, and it has an emphasis in human rights education. So once I saw that and knew that I wanted to get an educational doctorate, I knew that that was the program I wanted to be involved with. So from there, I think it drew me a little bit to that program, this idea of human rights as kind of like a foundation for, you know, society.
And then you bring that into the classroom.
Yes, yes. So yeah, my research is going to be on community colleges as kind of places of social justice education and human rights education. And so looking at how I can connect the students' daily lives to sociology and to human rights, the human rights enterprise, or framework for like a worldview. So.
Okay, so now before I ask a little more about human rights, I'd like to hear from Nick. As a student, what did all this mean to you? How did you start thinking about human rights, and what do you think about it now?
What do I think about now? I'm starting to realize that our human rights are overlooked a lot. There's a lot of stuff that people, like I'm sure on the interviews that you guys are showing, not a lot of people know what they are, and that they need to be viewed a lot more. They need to be focused on, and we should be viewing those a lot more personally, I believe. I mean, I think every day everybody breaks some human rights in some way, without even knowing it. They just kind of, you know. But the more we look at the rights that we do as humans, you know, I believe that it, you know, might become a better place, just globally. You know, so.
Was there an aha moment for you in class?
There's been a couple, actually. There's been like I haven't been able to focus on a lot of the human rights, but it's just kind of like the more you read it, you kind of have those aha moments. You kind of think about stuff that you've done personally during the day. You'll sit there and you'll read something in the human rights, and you'll kind of just go, oh, hey, I've done that, or I feel bad for doing something like that. You know, it's just kind of, it's an eye opener just to even to glance through it a little bit. It's just kind of, and then in her class, we I think every student that she has done that at least once or twice.
So that's really interesting to me, because you're experiencing human rights not as necessarily something that they do, that's done by governments and others, but as something that we do.
Yeah, exactly.
It's something that as individuals we take for granted and sometimes even take advantage of other people for, because you know we realize that, I think subconsciously we know we have these rights, and so therefore we take them for granted. And sometimes don't respect other people's rights.
Yes.
Because of that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So tell me about this book you've got here.
Well, it's actually she was showing me it earlier, because it's a nice version of all the human rights. It's got every article. We're actually, my group, we have 5 different groups, or five different groups of our event that we're going to be doing December 5th, the whole week of December 5th. And so there's about, you know, family, crime, and justice, but these articles are linked to those events we're going to be doing. Okay. And so my personal group is family, and so we're going to be discussing
Article 11.
Article 11, yeah.
Okay, what is that one?
Article 11 is everyone charged with...
Nope, not Article 11, sorry. Article 16.
16. We're a little off too. See, there's
There's
30 articles in here,
yeah,
so
okay.
it's kind of like, and they're all linked together in
So
some
there
way.
are 30 rights. Okay.
Yeah, so men and women full age without any limitation due to race, nationality, or religion have the right to marry and found a family. They are entitled to equal rights as to marriage due to marriage and its dissolution. So that's that's our family thing we're going to be doing
so
on that week.
What are you going to do? How are you going to
Actually, we're going to
illustrate
incorporate that, with family plus adding in gays and lesbians and their rights to marry as well.
Okay.
So our event is actually, we're going to have, I actually went to last weekend a no hate rally, which is the awareness of gay and lesbian marriage.
Okay.
And we're going to be basing our event after that. And what they do is take pictures of people that agree with their views, and they kind of, so what we're doing is basically going to be making awareness of, family is more for everybody, and not just men and women, but for every single person, and it's
Okay.
so.
Okay, and this will
So
be
they
in the
actually-
student center, like at a table? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're going to be actually doing it up at the cafeteria, and so throughout the week, every day of the week, we're going to have another event. So our day is actually Thursday of that week, and then I can't remember everybody else's schedule, but so Poverty is Monday, Education's Tuesday, Criminal Justice is going to be Wednesday, and Thursday is going to be held with us later on Thursday in the afternoon, like 1 to 3. So.
And doing the family.
Yeah, doing the family.
Okay.
So,
Great.
So it's a week-long thing.
So we can be able to learn a lot there.
Yes.
Now, how do human rights differ from, what's the difference between that and what we hear a lot about in this country, which is our civil rights?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Human rights are basically a set of protections and entitlements for every human being just for being human. So it's very universal. That's that's why that word universal is in there. And it's supposed to be irrespective of race, class, sexual orientation, culture, national origin. You are entitled to these rights. And they're based on the foundation of respect. So this notion that in our daily lives we can recognize human rights, it's also in affirming the dignity of other human beings, no matter where they come from or what they believe, really. And so when you think about civil rights, it is one part of that. So human rights, the 30 articles, are very broad in scope. They cover everything from what some, I guess, scholars or academics would call negative rights, protection from things happening to you, like torture and slavery and rights to trials and that kind of thing. And then there's things called positive rights, which are almost like resources that the government or the state is supposed to provide in order to have the people that are part of the citizens of that country. Well, citizens is actually an interesting word too, because that actually isn't part of it. But the people of that country are supposed to have access to these resources.
Okay.
And
what would be an example of some of those?
An example would be access to healthcare, access to education, things that we consider as public goods, I guess, even though they're privatized in many situations as well, at least in this country. But and so what ended up happening is there's those kind of versions of rights. And in 1948, when the UDHR was actually founded on December 10th, and Eleanor Roosevelt was the head of that, actually. So a woman and a woman from the United States is kind of key. They spent the next few years recognizing that these are commonly held standards that the global system recognizes. But then it's actually not enforceable. There's no law saying that you have to uphold these 30 laws. It's just a recognition, almost like an ideal, right, that we're striving for, and we've all agreed to strive for. All 192 member states have agreed to strive for it. But then there's these other documents that make up the International Bill of Human Rights, which most people don't know exists. And this was created from 1950 to 1976, I think was when they started them. So the first one is, just so I don't get the acronym wrong, the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, which is more what you're talking about, like the right to freedom of speech and assembly and voting practices and democracy, essentially. And then the second covenant is the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. So the negative rights are really easy to give people. We do that well here. We say, look, you can go and you know, assemble or you know, write the newspaper or whatever you need to do. But the economic rights, by saying that people have right to employment, they have right to be a part of labor unions, they have a right to health care and education, those things cost money, right? At least in this society. So, and cultural rights too. So what happened was nation states ratified the different covenants. Guess which one we haven't ratified? The second one, economic, social, and cultural. So once you ratify and pass a treaty and sign on to it, then you're held accountable for it. We, of course,
by the UN.
By the UN, yes.
Okay.
And there's, I mean, this is a lot to talk about, you know, in the short time that we have. But there is a whole structure for, you know, any sort of criminal courts and that kind of thing. And then there's also structures that uphold these covenants and treaties. But those treaties and covenants that come from are built on this document.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's say, as a person in the world, you know, I look through it and I feel that that my rights have been violated.
Yeah.
What do I do?
Yeah. So that's a really loaded question. It's kind of difficult to ask. Thanks for preparing me on that. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
You're only held accountable to the rights that your country has kind of signed on to. What's interesting about the United States is we kind of claim or think that we're kind of the gold standard of human rights. We throw that around a lot. And so in this country, we all are walking around thinking human rights is something that happens over there, right? In these other countries that, you know, don't let, you know, people vote and that kind of thing. But I guess the point of this class, to bring it in, is to tie it that there's human rights violations going in our own backyard, and changing the language and saying things like poverty and homelessness and the unemployment rate, things that we're all very, very familiar with. We need to reframe that into a human rights violation, because essentially that's what it is. So changing that conversation in this country, I think is kind of the message that I was trying to get with my students, and talking about in a social problems class as a sociologist, investigating these social problems and issues that we have from a human rights lens allows, I think, my students to kind of see, like, oh yeah, everyone deserves, you know, to have food and shelter. And so, you know, this class is also combined with like service hours, and so they go and, you know, work at St. Joseph's or different organizations around Gilroy.
Okay, is it a service learning class?
It is, yes. Okay. It's a service learning / project based. So they're basically uniting and taking what they learned in their service sites to experience it, and then they're trying to bring human rights and this knowledge to the Gavilan students. And so I think the important part to go back to your question that I really didn't answer, there are the UDHR, the 30 articles that we've all agreed to have shown up in constitutions around the world, like about 50 or 60. Wow. A lot of academics and people are calling for the United States to relook at our Constitution and our Bill of Rights as from more of a human rights framework. And so new countries, right, new democracies and that kind of thing are rewriting their constitutions and using this as their kind of ideal. So in some states are acting it out in their state, right? Okay. So, but if you're in a state that doesn't, you know, sign on to the UDHR, it's kind of a whole different story, talking about the International Criminal Court and the different committees that exist. The Human Rights Watch is a group founded in this country to make sure we keep and uphold these standards. Okay.
So I'd like to take over to Nick for a minute. Yeah. Now, you know, we've heard from Lindsay now a lot about the global and what the institution can do. What have you learned that an individual can do to respect somebody else's human rights?
Mostly be aware. Just kind of like I said, just going over it and reading it is enough to. And I mean, you don't have to sit there and study it. Right. Just kind of sit there, take a look at it. I mean, it's free, it's online. You know, just it's good knowledge to know. I mean,
we'll be passing them out too. We'll be passing out during that week.
During that week, yeah.
Okay, and what's that week again?
December 5th.
Okay, December 5th, the whole week of December 5th, we are going to be having the human rights events up in the Student Center. Okay, and you'll be getting us stuff to post online about that, right?
Yes.
You'll be getting that to the Public Information Office, so we can post that on the website.
And there'll be flyers and everything.
And there'll be flyers and stuff around campus. Perfect. So we are looking forward to that. I want to thank Nick and Lindsay both for being here.
Thanks for having us.
This is wonderful, and we're going to